We all know each other from different stories. There are people from municipality of Križevci, which I would like very much to thank for the space and the opportunity to be here and actually discuss possibilities of cooperative housing, affordable housing being developed somewhere in Croatia. And also we wanted to use this opportunity to present what our colleagues in our region are dealing with, starting with Ljubljana and then Belgrade, but also to present what Belgium is dealing with, what Brussels is dealing with, and what are the ideas that are being developed in Western Europe. We, Anna and Rok, will talk about cooperative housing in their countries, or their wish to build cooperative housing, and what they deal with, how they deal with their local municipalities, their government, and what are the possibilities of any kind of cooperation. And Het will talk about a model of actually community land trust, a model that comes from United States but has been present in Europe for the last 10 or so years, which is also a very interesting model for developing community, for developing affordable housing. So, without me talking any further, I would introduce Rok Ramšak from Zadrugator from Ljubljana and ask him to shortly present his story.
Just a short history, summary of this.
If you could louder.
Okay. So Zadrugator started working about 3 to 4 years ago. We did not start as a housing cooperative, we just started as a group of students from different fields, mainly sociology, architecture, and civic engineering. And we were just meeting for the first time, knowing we want to do something, we want to do some research, but not quite sure what exactly to research. Looking at our interest, we realized it could be something in the field of urbanism, architecture, and then we went to housing. The first idea was, let's research housing, let's invent new models, but quickly we realized, okay, there are not that many different models in Slovenia, for instance. Maybe if we could simply look abroad a little further, we could find some interesting models that are already developed and could potentially work quite well in case of Slovenia or Ljubljana specifically as well. So quite quickly we stumbled upon housing cooperatives. Because of some specific, local specific, we quite quickly discovered rental cooperatives, and we more or less focused on Swiss model. So our first thing we started to do is just research their model and started thinking about how this could be implemented in Slovenia. Then our second step was to start promoting this concept simply by opening up a Facebook page, doing some public events. Luckily, they were very well received. At a certain point, at one of the events, we did not expect that much. I think through the whole day, more than 200 people showed up. So quite a lot of interest, but not just from potential residents and students and professionals in the housing field, but also, luckily for us, by the local government and some state representatives. I think this is something that really distinguishes us, as that we were quite lucky to get the government on board, at least to a certain degree. After a year, let's say 2 years ago, we managed to convince the Ministry for Space and Urbanism to start a work group with some experts from the ministry, from our side, and from the national and local Ljubljana housing funds, just to see how cooperatives could be implemented in Slovenia. We managed to develop a short document on how to do that. The government, the Prime Minister, after that expressed his direct support, financial as well. Unfortunately, for now, he did not follow through. He has one more month to do that. We're not hoping for much, but luckily we did get quite strong connections with Ljubljana Local Housing Fund and the National Housing Fund. Their situation is that, of course, they need to build housing. There's no specific regulation saying they need to build affordable housing, just providing housing for the market, for the people. Unfortunately, they do not have enough funds. So current situation in Ljubljana is we are lacking at least 4,000 apartments, rental apartments, and about 12,000 overall, just for Ljubljana. And as they do not have enough money, they cannot afford to build on their own. So housing cooperatives are quite an okay solution for them, because taking their own funds and taking our funds, private funds, we can build much more that either one of us could build on our own. So the current situation right now for us is that the local municipal housing fund of Ljubljana has designated some land quite near the city center, where they'll be in the future, in the next couple of years, developing quite a lot. They have reserved a small plot of land specifically for the housing cooperative for around 30-35 apartments. The National Housing Fund has also offered support in form of funding, especially as loan backup. We have a lot of interest from the public. Currently, I think, if our estimations are correct, we can already fill 40 apartments. And we haven't even started really promoting and saying, look, there are apartments available. And so that brings us to our biggest problem, which is there are no direct ways for these stakeholders, which I've mentioned, to subsidize us or to be involved. So what we are doing is looking for different loopholes. We have determined them, but to truly develop housing cooperative systems in Slovenia, we need to develop systemic solutions, which is what we're researching and trying to develop with them. And the other part is, or the other problem, are the financial institutions. They simply do not have any mechanisms or, let's say, any program, products that could be used for a specific situation. They have, for instance, offering loans to individuals, which can be up to 30 years, but this is something it's hard to get if you're in a precarious position in terms of employment, or simply because this means a huge burden and huge risk, which people simply cannot take. The other part is, so how we are solving this with the cooperative is the loan is not taken by the individual but by the cooperative. But by solving this problem we're creating another problem for ourselves, which is the fact that, for reasons unknown to us, banks or financial institutions would simply not offer long-term loans to private companies, which cooperative is, so only up to 10 years, which is not enough for a sustainable model, and the interest rates are just insanely high. I hope by working together with them, by having support from the government, we'll manage to find a way around that. Or what we're also hoping for is arrival for some equity investors, which we're also lacking in this part of Europe.
Okay, thank you, Rok. I think Slovenia and Croatia, as well as have this problem where especially young people are not able to enter the housing market or get loans only if they have family support or something like that. So I think these changes, public funds or public land is going to play a big role in future in keeping people here. So it's let's continue with Belgrade and Smarter Building Initiative.
Yeah, our story is quite similar to yours in the way we started, actually not without knowing exactly where we want to go, but we started with a question to which we had really no prescribed path how to get there. So we started with the question, is it possible to make much more affordable housing, let's say half or even 1/3 price of what the market is offering, by basically making an open call and inviting people to collectively rethink this. And there have been different phases in our work on this. The first one was this collective exploration of what would be the ways to get there, through which we had put to ourselves a couple of challenges. So the first one is this price, which in Belgrade is like average €1,400 per square meter. So we were thinking, okay, can you make it substantially lower? And what would be the way to get there? So that could incorporate, on one hand, of course, would exclude external investors, someone who is coming there to speculate, would make it from the start would have to be not for profit, non-speculative idea. The second way was how to bring in exactly this what you said, people that cannot go to the bank and ask for a mortgage, that don't have money from the start, didn't inherit something, so what is possibility for them to get to an apartment in a situation where there is less than 1% social housing, in the situation where the government is building, or city of Belgrade is building about 100, maximum 200 apartments a year, there is no social rent. So in these conditions, you have to unite somehow to create, on one hand, a solidarity, but also capacity of this group of people to collectively then approach potentially a bank. And there, of course, we come to the same condition that the banks also, that the interest rates are very high, that this collective body that goes to negotiate is also very difficult to understand, that when we try to speak with someone, it's very difficult to actually make a breakthrough. And that is where, maybe just jump now to this situation where we are now, where we, some more than half a year, maybe 7-8 months ago, for the first time met with a group of cooperatives in making, or some of them registered already, like in the case of Ljubljana. We recognized that we have all basically the same problems, and that by joining forces maybe we can make a breakthrough, if not in all our contexts, at least in one of them that then could be serve as example to show that this is possible also in the context of Central and Southeast Europe, where the conditions for developing this kind of projects are very different than the one that we will hear, for instance, in Brussels, where there are funds, when there are different kind of possibilities. So that was this kind of building a joint capacity on one hand, on the level of each of our cooperatives or each of our groups, but also like together. And then, let's say, maybe just to jump now into where we are now. So summer last year, after this long period of defining conceptually what we want to do, even looking for potential locations and seeing the limits of that, if we want to buy, we would just simply have to buy on the market, or we would have to rely on some kind of donation. We started to speak with the city government of Belgrade, only to recognize after a year of talks that that basically they don't have even a map of locations which are in their ownership and could potentially be sites for these kind of developments, while in the meantime they're selling the ones that they find somewhere in the map, are selling them according to market prices for speculative developments. Some of them they reserve for the city developed social housing, but that is really very, very small number of apartments. So let's say there, this communication is not difficult, but actually systemic change is difficult, is not planned, and there is no political will. So that lack of political will is the biggest problem. One, let's say, small victory which we had is that by joining forces with a number of different organizations which deal with housing, from, let's say, energy poverty to people that are defending minority rights, and variety, very different organizations, we made our comments and proposals for the law on housing, which was voted like a year and a half ago. And we managed to bring in a housing cooperative as not-for-profit actor that can develop not-for-profit housing into this law. But after the law has been made, there is no strategy, there is no like agenda made how this can be made possible, and not to mention that there is no any budget this kind of allocated for this. So this is the situation in which we are, and then we decided, okay, we cannot wait for all these conditions to change, but what we would have to do in order for let's say, systemic change, that is our standpoint, we have to realize a pilot project that would serve as an example to make then systemic change. So not to go through legal things first and then hope that somewhere 15 years later we can make it, but we would, I used this term also yesterday in an event which I was speaking about the same subject, we would have to simulate in a way support of these institutions by bringing donations or fundraising, crowdfunding, gifts or whatever, to simulate that support which we would need from the government. That support we count would be necessary in the amount of 15 or 20% of this. So somehow we hope that we could create a condition to show that this is possible, and our aim is, let's say our aim in the beginning was to create housing that would cost like 20% of your income. Now we realize that is quite hard and very difficult to achieve. But what we, through calculations, quite detailed calculations that we made during last year, we think that now we can make 25% less expensive housing on long term in a period of 30 years than the market offers. And that is where we can, let's say, reach in the circumstances in which we are at the moment. And of course we hope then that by making this first pilot project we can make a breakthrough. And in the first pilot project we had the whole spectrum of things that we want to achieve, like 6, 7 very important things, and now we are maybe limited that to a couple of main points that we want to make through this project. The first one is this affordability, the second one is collective ownership, and I don't know what would be maybe the most important. Yeah, the third one is this, let's say, the idea of making the cooperative also operate the building and work on all these, like, let's say, from the starting up to the end of operating, managing the building.
It is, when you were talking, it is interesting how all of these models are offering to the local municipalities and the government help in developing this very much needed housing. And what we see when talking, I know from your example, talking with a local municipality, but also talking with people, everybody is like, how do you mean you're not going to make money out of it? What is, how, and why would I get into it if I'm not going to make money out of my own apartment? Which is interesting because usually people lose money on their apartments because they pay high mortgage and things like that. So, but also what we always say that these models of cooperative housing and other similar models are quite developed in Western Europe, and I guess we can learn a bit from them. So I will give a word to Kat.
Thank you. Well, I am working in Brussels for an organization called Community Land Trust Brussels. We started working on this almost 10 years ago as a reaction on the housing crisis in Brussels. In the year 2000, housing prices in Brussels started to increase at a rate of 10% each year, so in 10 years they doubled. Similar things happened in other European capitals. In Brussels, the housing situation is most of the housing is private market, a lot of tenants, also homeowners, and then a very small amount of social housing. There is no tradition of social housing in Brussels, not as it is in France or in the Netherlands or in Germany. On the other hand, in Belgium we have a strong tradition of support to home ownership. This has really been the major model of helping also low-income people to get their right to housing, is to helping them through social mortgages or fiscal schemes or grants, etc., to buy their own home. But all these programs didn't work anymore for the lowest income groups because as prices were rising so much, the existing programs were not working anymore. So we were looking for other ways to help the lowest income families who had no alternative. They couldn't go to social housing in the private market. They lived in small apartments of bad quality. They paid over 50% of their income to the rent. So what we were looking for were models that could use all the existing schemes of helping homeowners, but making it more sustainable. Because one of the big problems in all these models of homeownership is that, well, if as a public authority you help one family by giving them a grant or land to buy or something like that, you will help one family, but when this family sells his home, all the public money invested in it will be lost. And even more, by doing so, you will sustain the increase of prices. So we were looking for something where we could offer the families the advantages of home ownership, such as security of tenure, such as the possibility of building equity, leaving a legacy to the children. But without all these negative effects of such policy. And then we discovered the community land trust model as it existed in the United States. The community land trust is slightly different from cooperatives, but it shares a lot of the same values. If we choose for this model, it was mainly because in Belgium legal system, it is difficult to use cooperatives as a model for housing. So the idea behind a community land trust is the fact that land shouldn't be used as something private. It shouldn't be used to speculate. It is in fact it belongs to humanity, to the communities, and it should be used in the interest of the communities and not in the interest of single persons who happen to have the possibility to own land. That's a beautiful idea, but the interesting thing about community land trust is that it is a pragmatical answer to it. In combining different elements, it is a way of producing affordable homes, but permanently affordable homes. So the first element of the community land trust model, as I already said, is that land is considered as a common good and will be managed by the community. The buildings on the community land trust land the ownership is separated from the ownership of the land. So you work with a separated ownership scheme. The land is common, and the buildings are individually owned, or it could be also a cooperative or an association that owns the buildings on the land. That's the first part of it. The second part of it is that we not only work with this kind of schemes that you also find in commercial developments, we add to it formulas to keep the housing affordable. We make housing affordable by buying the land, in our case with grants. Most of community land trusts work with public money combined with gifts or charity to buy the land, and then this is taken out of the price. When we sell the homes, people won't pay the land. This is a way of making it affordable, but it's not so innovative as such. The innovative part is, how do we keep the homes affordable? Well, when the first homeowner decides to sell his home, he can do it whenever he wants, but the resale price will be restricted. He will only get a small percentage of the appreciation. So it's a way for him to build equity, not as a tenant, he will not leave with empty hands, but in the same time, these homes will stay affordable without needing extra public investments. And then the third interesting part in the community land trust is the way it is governed. If I say that the land is common ownership, how does it work? Well, it's the community land trust who owns the land, but the CLT is governed by a board where 1/3 of the seats are taken by people living on CLT lands, homeowners or people renting spaces on CLT land. 1/3 of the board are people from the broader community, not living on the land, but with an interest in having lively neighborhoods and affordable homes in their neighborhoods. So, for instance, people in associations or neighborhoods groups. And then the third is people representing the authorities. So, in our case, it is public officials who have 1/3 of the seats in our board. So you have a very interesting mix of different interests. The homeowners, they will defend their interests. The public authorities will have other interests, and this is really a very interesting way to get the right balance between the interest of the individual homeowners and the interest of the community. So today, we started 5 years ago officially. We were recognized by the Brussels government. They gave us subsidies to buy the first land. And then today, since then, each year we have a budget of more or less 2 million euros, which is a lot of money. It enables us to produce more or less 25 to 30 homes for low-income groups. We are developing now 8 different projects in other different parts of the Brussels region. There's only one project which is already occupied. 3 are in the building process, and the others are in the planning process. We have 350 families who are members, who, because they want to become one day homeowner. Well, yeah, I think that's the most important.
Thank you. Okay, so after this, I'd like Mario, the mayor of Križevci, to introduce himself and to introduce, well, what Križevci thinks about this and yeah, the situation in the city, housing. And Mario will talk in Croatian.
Yeah, first of all, I'm not so fluent in English, so I'll talk in my native language. But I do really wish you a warm welcome to our town. I hope you will have a happy and product next 3 days, yeah, until Sunday. So I will go to Croatian. Dakle, dobrodošli u grad Križevce. Jako mi je drago što ste tu u našem razvojnom centru i tehnološkom parku. Grad Križevci se suočavaju s velikim problemom nedostatka stambenog prostora, a pogotovo za mlade obitelji i mlade profesionalce. I onda kad to stavite u kontekst negativnih demografskih trendova cijele države, a naravno da se mi s time suočavamo, baš za niz tih događaja zahtijeva onako, osudit ću se reći, hrabre i odvažne, a možda i pomalo neuobičajene poteze, barem za ovako relativno malu lokalnu zajednicu. Tako da, mi smo mali grad nadomak metropole, znači tu na 50 km, dobro smo povezani infrastrukturno, prometno, ali jednostavno vidimo da to nije dovoljno da naši, prvenstveno sugrađani, ostaju ovdje živjeti. Znači, vole i imaju više prilika zaraditi u Zagrebu, ali tamo nekako žele kupovati stanove na periferiji koji su i vrlo upitne kvalitete. A ne samo da bi ih mi htjeli zadržati, mi bi htjeli profesionalce iz Zagreba dovesti da ovdje žive, pa da dnevno komjutaju i rade u Zagrebu. Prema tome, ako sam dobro shvatio, a mislim da jesam svoje prethodnike, ako negdje izostaje politička volja, ovdje političke volje ima. Poneviše zato što ljudi koji su i sa mnom, dakle mi smo prošle godine preuzeli administraciju gradsku, mi zaista nismo opterećeni tim partikularnim političkim ciljevima u smislu da li ćemo mi sad zbog toga izgubiti sljedeći mandat ili nećemo. To su politički ciklusi i bože moj. Ali ono što bi svakako htjeli je zadržati naše prvenstveno sugrađane, našu generaciju, učiniti ovaj grad progresivnim, više usmjerenim ovako straightforward novim tehnologijama, u ostalom konceptima koji na zapadu funkcioniraju i jednostavno poslati jasnu poruku općenito građanima Hrvatske, ali prvenstveno našim sugrađanima, da ne treba ići na zapad sve tražiti, dakle da možemo ovdje tu. To se tiče i oblika stanovanja o kojem danas razgovaramo, ali isto tako se tiče i ovog tu prostora, razvoj centra tehnološkog parka, naših poslovnih zona i tako dalje. Evo, to je onako koncept, odnosno što je nas motiviralo. Mi smo do prošlog tjedna imali jednu obuhvatniju anketu, jedno mjesečno istraživanje o potrebama i željama za stambenim zbrinjavanjem, jer bilo koji od koncepata koje razmatramo, svi nekako daju određenu tu težište stavljaju na početno istraživanje. Tako da evo, imamo 152 anketna upitnika i koji ljudi su iskazali zaista interes za življenjem ili stambenim zbrinjavanjem u Križevcima, ali smo pokušali upitnikom, znači ne samo onako crno-bijelo, nego koja je to kvaliteta života koju traže. Da li mi je samo bitna cijena kvadrata, naravno da je, i to je jedan od oblika koji želimo da bude pristupačna cijena, ali koliko uvažavaju energetsku učinkovitost, koliko uvažavaju troškove života kao tako, režije. Mi još uvijek imamo puno onu situaciju, usudit ću se reći, malo i balkanskog mentaliteta gdje se prvo gleda cijena, pa makar stan onda u Zagrebu košta i 1100 eura po kvadratu, nema veze što će režije u 30 godina vas progutati 3 puta. To je sve ono što mi pokušavamo komunicirati, što otvorenije, naravno koristeći društvene mreže i tako dalje, ali i kroz ovakve susrete, naravno da je izazovno, ali još jedan ću ponoviti onu rečenicu. Vjerujemo da je ovo vrijeme koje zahtijeva čvrste i odlučne ljude, odluke i mislim da smo mi spremni to. Dakle, što se tiče grada, mi imamo tu predviđen prostor o kojem smo razgovarali, koji je u sklopu ovog tu kompleksa, znači ne razvojnog centra, nego na cijeloj površini, to je nekada bila vojarna, znači za vojnu upotrebu. I tu definitivno u centru grada želimo pozicionirati takav oblik stanovanja, istovremeno učiniti sve dostupno u gradu, ali biti svojevrstan pilot projekt za cijelu državu, ali naravno prvenstveno uvažavajući lokalne potrebe. Evo kratko.
Što kaže anketa?
Anketa kaže svašta, mislim, to je svašta smo pitali, dakle, od zanimanja koje su pokazali interes, tu ima i ekonomista, i kontrolora leta, informatičara, liječnika, ali ima i ljudi srednje stručne spreme. Mjesto rada, dakle, to je ono što kažem, u Križevcima ima 75 zaposlenih, ali ima 31 zaposlenih u Zagrebu koji je spreman ovdje živjeti, u Bjelovaru, u Koprivnici, Varaždinu, dakle, s time naglašavam, mi nismo ovdje eksplicitno pitali da li ste spremni u stambenu zadrugu, nego smo pokušali onako različiti koncept, na primjer, recimo pitali smo koliko vam je bitan zajednički vješeraj, ili koliko je bitna određena modularnost stanova, dakle, da li vam je bitno da je stan, ne znam, 2 stana se daju prirodno spojiti i tako dalje. Evo, to je onako zanimljivo da je ljudima jako bitno, znači da ako si možda mogu priuštiti stan od 38 kvadrata, to im je ok, ali ako bi se nekakve okolnosti složile da se mogu 2 stana spojiti, to im je još bolje. Naravno, članovi djece, odnosno broj djece, broj članova obitelji, više manje stan, ali ima ovaj dio koji, ono što mi je jako drago, dakle, važnost potrošnje energije. 99 ispitanika od 152 su to naglasili kao iznimno bitno. Dakle, da ipak tu svijest mijenjamo i da ljudi uvažavaju, dakle, da nije više samo ona jednokratna cijena ili ona inicijalna cijena stana, nego sve dalje troškovi energije, odnosno energije i tako dalje. Onda sakupljanje kišnice, recimo, to smo pitali. Pa i tu 43 ljudi se izjasnilo da im je to jako bitno, nekakva medijana je 37 da im je bitno, ali nije presudno. Dobro, onda što se tiče mjerenja potrošnje energije, u smislu da svako ima svoje brojilo, to je naravno ljudima jako bitno, ali to je opet ovaj dio našeg tradicionalnog pristupa gdje ljudi vole ono svako za sebe. Okay. I evo 68 ispitanika je baš jako apostrofiralo kao jako im važno korištenje obnovljivih izvora energije, znači to je američana mineralna. Mislim da to je više manje ovo. Na kraju su pitali naravno za subvencije stana. Mi imamo određene modele koje razmatramo prvenstveno, ali u kontekstu deficita i struka. To je sad onaj jedan širi kontekst društveni gdje naše lokalno tržište rada zahtijeva određene struke, a mi ih nažalost ne nalazimo na lokalnom tržištu. Ili onaj dio koji uključuje nekakav prirodni odljev u sljedećih 10 godina gdje mi imamo projekcije i brojke koje će nam struke u sljedećih 10 godina postati jako kronično nedostajati, to su prvenstveno liječnici, ali jednostavno kao zajednica do sad nismo baš puno polagali nekako strateško planiranje u to, nego se to stihijski odvijalo, kao pa riješit će se nekako. Mislim da, dobro, koliko ste upoznati, ali što se tiče konkretno medicine, žalost naša država nije ni približno dnu, jer u suradnji sa liječničkom komorom mi smo dobili jedan cijeli dnevnik, mislim, ljudi koji su sljedećih 10 godina koji idu prirodni odljev i koji bi trebali ulaziti u obrazovnom segmentu na fakultete i to je takva disproporcija da tek nam slijede pravi problemi. Ali to nije samo struka liječnika, to je naravno i programeri i niz drugih struka. Mislim da u ovom trenutku...
Koji bolje uvjete života imaju vani.
Tako. Imamo u ovom trenutku i recimo specifičnu situaciju sa odgajateljicama u vrtiću. To nam nedostaje, što je do prije 5-6 godina bilo nezamislivo. Bilo ih je suficit.
Da, u biti je onda pitanje politika koje pružaju stanovanje po nekim pristupačnim cijenama u biti sastavni dio demografske politike.
A mi smo to u smislu demografske politike upravo to apostrofirali kao jako bitno. Dakle, ali ne ono kozmetički, znači ako je u Zagrebu 1300 eura pa ovdje 1250 pa će se malo. Nego upravo suprotno, znači za što manje, odnosno što pristupačnije da bude, a da ima opet što više dodane vrijednosti. Bilo da je to riječ o engleskim odnosno obnovljivim izvorima energije ili nekim dodatnim sadržajima koje ovakav oblik života. Ima neko pitanje i sad koliko sam bio razumljiv ili nisam?
Pitanja, questions, comments, we would like to hear them for any of our panelists. Goran?
Pa ja bih gradonačelnika pitao, spomenuo i ovaj tradicionalni pristup gdje svako želi imati svoje brojilo, gdje svako želi biti vlasnik svoga i slično. Ja to vidim kao nešto što u ovom, recimo, konkretnom projektu koji se sada predlaže treba na neki određeni način adresirati. Da li je to nešto što se misli da, zapravo što mislite da se može kroz odgovarajuću edukaciju riješiti, ako se pokažu svi benefiti da ne utječu na sigurnost samog stanovanja i da li je to nešto i na koji način zapravo se može u suradnji sa gradom pristupiti i toj edukaciji i informiranju građana.
Pa, općenito, da, mislim da puno toga u našoj, ja neću reći, stalno referiram na državu, tako je u našem komunikacijskom prostoru i medijima nije do kraja ili dovoljno dobro iskomunicirano prema našim sugrađanima. Odnosno da jedan cijeli koncept ili oblak informacija ostane onako po strani i samo se neke ključne ili određene točke se izvade poput, evo, ovako, mislim, statistički neke situacije koje vas vuku na jednu stranu, iako zanemarujete niz drugih stvari. Dakle, što hoću reći, politika, mislim, prvenstveno lokalna, mora naravno svim svojim alatima, medijskim ugovorima, ali direktnom participacijom lokalnih dužnosnika, to tako doživljavam, mislim, moja uloga je služiti, a ne vladati. Izgorit će brzo, jel? Ali, dakle, ako treba 5 po 5 ljudi sakupljati, mislim, u gradskim četvrtima i odgovarati 100 puta na ista pitanja, ali jednostavno to je ona situacija u kojoj smo se mi zatekli nakon 30, 40, 50 godina onak sustava idemo samo kak idemo. Dakle, definitivno mislim da je vrijeme za drugačije pristupe i prema tome ovdje kad ja vidim ovo da 68 i koliko sam rekao ljudi to ističe kao jako bitno, onda ja to ne vidim kao sad ogroman problem, nego samo kao izazov kako to iskomunicirati i uvjeriti ljude, a mislim da je pozicija gradonačelnika jako dobra na lokalnoj razini, da daje podršku takvom projektu. Neću reći da je neophodna ili da je to deal breaker ili deal maker, ali mislim da sigurno to sponzorstvo sa najviše razine može itekako pomoći cijelom projektu.
Pa, s obzirom na to da imamo sponzorstvo s najviše razine, da država zapravo radi programe koje ono favoriziraju zapravo kao prvo recimo privatno vlasništvo na samim, onda recimo sa politikama poput razdjelnika u mreži grijanja zapravo individualiziraju potrošnju, znači cijelo vrijeme nas neko uči da je to jedini mogući način kako da nam bude jeftinije, a to nije istina. Znači lokalne samouprave imaju tu mogućnost da educiraju. Godine imaš još jedno pitanje.
Ne, to se ti reći, zapravo više komentar na to pitanje, da je ključ pokazati je zašto ljudi žele imati sve svoje. Mislim da ti ima stvari veći nivo sigurnosti i osobne nadkontrolnosti i time, ali zapravo koncept koji pokazuje da kroz ovaj solidaran pristup se zapravo stvari sigurnost koji treba biti na više razini nego taj individualna i to je ono što zapravo na neki način treba adresirati.
Da li ovakav oblik stambenog zajedništva osigurava neka veća zajednička prava? Mi smo ovdje bili svjedoci u nekoliko zadnjih slučajeva, znači stambena zgrada, puno stanova, i nađe se neka nesocijalna osoba koja smeta svim stanarima. I ne postoji institucija koja može riješiti problem. Da li je ovakav slučaj, obzirom da nisu vlasnici točno određene nekretnine, nego se to ugovor rješavaju, postoje metode i alati kojima se takav problem može riješiti?
Pa, možda kolege mogu dodati, ali mislim da u ovom slučaju su svi zapravo članovi zadruge koja ima svoja pravila. I znači nisu samo, ono što mi imamo recimo u našim višestambenim zgradama, da smo svi suvlasnici i naša prava proizilaze iz toga da smo vlasnici, a ne moramo biti članovi te zajednice. I onda, ako mi nemamo ugovor, mi nemamo suvlasnički ugovor u smislu koji definira nužno kako se mi smijemo ili ne smijemo ponašati u nekim slučajima. A zadruga bi to treba, nisam
možda nisam pratila, ne znam, jedan stan i osoba je, ne znam, mentalno problematična, nakupljala je tone smeća u stanu. Neizdrživi smrad, svi stanari ispod dakle, to curi. Institucije to ne mogu riješiti jer je privatno vlasništvo nepovredivo. Ne mogu pretplatiti stana, ne mogu riješiti, ali možda u ovakvom obliku da li postoji veći stupanj zaštite. Mislim, obzirom da niste točno toliko kvadrata stana,
nego posto kao užas. Da, da ste dio zajednice. Pa evo, Goran se javio, mislim da hoće odgovoriti.
Pa ne, to je zapravo vezana ta stvar. Znači, iz iskustva iz Belgije možda moći i konkretno nešto odgovoriti. Međutim, poanta je da vlasnik koji onda odlučuje o tome je zapravo taj zajednički entitet zadruga, kooperativa, koja onda nema te prepreke individualnog neslaganja. I naravno, to se onda internim aktom zadruge uredi na koji način ljudi mogu odlučivati o tome koji će se akcije krenuti, ali u svakom slučaju ta prepreka osobnog vlasništva koja nam ne dozvoljava je maknuta, je zaobiđena i u Nizozemskoj isto gdje takvi koncepti su poznati je na kraju kraju cijela regulativa tamo drugačije postavljena. U svakom slučaju nivo i održavanja i upravljanja zgradama ovdje treba biti veći u stavljanju modela. Znači puno efikasnije.
Dobro, u slučajima mentalnog zdravlja je to već problem države i institucija.
pitanje je bilo čisto radi povećanja sigurnosti kao jedan od argumenta. Mislim, odnosno prava ostalih na ugodno stanovanje.
In strong communities there's less mental health issues.
I would like to ask about whether there's a tension between the political aim of providing housing and high quality housing to, if I understood correctly, principally professionals who are working here or who are coming to Krzyżewski because of this establishment here, and the fact that I think one of the main attractions of cooperative housing is to be able to provide housing to those who cannot access housing individually, which would mean households that are excluded from the current mortgage schemes mainly, because households that can access mortgage will typically prefer to take that option, I guess, unless they have some kind of ideological engagement with cooperative housing. And so, do you think it's going to be a manageable, like finding this margin of people who are like stable in terms of income and thus could probably access a mortgage in the market, and whether there is also a political aim to develop or to support this kind of model for those who are not in a stable income position.
Ako sam dobro shvatio, da, dakle nije direktna korelacija da trebaju profesionalci živjeti u tome, imamo drugačije modele. Ne, ja sam razumio. Dakle, nije to direktna korelacija i nije zamišljeno da se radi tu na taj način komuna superprofesionalaca i svojevrsna getoizacija. Ali nekako tendencija vlasništva u Hrvatskoj, ali posebno i u Križevcima je takva da ljudi koji imaju onako niži income ili imaju problema, ono predugo ostaju kod roditelja i to je postalo ne kod roditelja, u obiteljskim kućama ili čeka nasljedstvo i to je nekako uhvaćeno kao opće uvriježeno mišljenje kako bi trebalo rješavati stambeno pitanje. Mi imamo niz situacija gdje ljudi ostaju u prastarim kućama, iako su u stvari na socijalni slučajevi, a mi imamo riješene socijalne stanove koji su danas friško obnovljeni i nikad nisu sad bili useljeni, a ljudi ne žele napustiti derutne kuće koje bi trebalo neko reći da nisu više uopće za živjeti, da uđu u socijalne stanove. Sad, da probam opet se vratiti na taj dio pitanja. Specifična je lokalna zajednica. Teško će ovakav koncept direktno samo utjecati na ove bilo nezaposlene, odnosno sa nižim prihodima. Jednostavno oni su ušli u tu jednu kolotečinu gdje se tu vežu uz uz obitelj i ostaju predugo u domu. Ja sam to više ove profesionalce spominjao kao svojevrstan PR ili kako to učiniti što vidljivijim, pa da ljudi vide da je to koncept koji može tu itekako zaživjeti u lokalnoj zajednici i upravo pristupačnim cijenama onda otvoriti put onoj srednjoj klasi koja kod nas, nažalost, kronično izumire. Sad, ja sam dosta shvatio u tom konceptu kako smo mi to zamislili, da naravno da pucamo na medijan koji kod nas jako sad izostaje, odnosno medijan. U smislu, mi imamo sad ili jako struke koje su visoko dohodovne ili ljudi koji su na rubu socijale. A probali bi zahvatiti ovaj dio koji ipak ima prosječne plaće, a nažalost nekako ih država stalno represijom vuče prema socijali. Tu kod nas, da ćemo mi moći trenutno naći, ne znam, za 15-20 stanova, nisam siguran i zato onda malo onak dodatno guram prema nekakvim inovativnim konceptima, iako sam potpuno svjestan koji pokušavamo segment uhvatiti. Ako sam probao dovoljno, odnosno uspio dovoljno jasno.
Mislim, prosječna plaća u Križevcima je zapravo, s obzirom na Zagreb, recimo...
Da, je bitno manje. Znači, kod nas je prosječna plaća na razini 4400 kuna neto, a dok je Zagreb sad već probio 6000 kuna, što on može činiti takako praktički po našim onim nekim izračunima i taman za razliku u rati. Sad. Slušam.
Da li to nekako potencijalno, znači sad je jasno da je tu fokus na rezultatu srednji klasu, srednji sloj, međutim da li se načelno može razmišljati da na budućnosti grad zamijeni recimo tu klasičnu politiku socijalnog stanovanja koju sad ima sa subvencijama prema ovom tipu stanovanja koji se na to stanovanje učinili inkluzivni, znači da takvim gradima žive ne samo ljudi određene statusa, nego šire.
Moglo bi, dapače, jedino što moram, mi imamo zaista te kapacitete socijalnih stanova značajne. Dakle, to u ovom trenutku imamo 3 nova stana koja su svježe obnovljena pa nisu useljiva. Imamo niz stanova koji su realno već za obnovu, ali se nalaze u centru grada, a ljudi koji imaju socijalni status imaju pravo na to, pa nisu spremni mijenjati centar grada za periferiju, iako je u Križevcima periferija smiješno blizu. Ali to je to opće uvriježeno mišljenje kako to funkcionira već 2 desetljeća, 2,5. I sad mi pokušavamo različitim individualnim akcijama promijeniti malo tu svijest, a nadam se da upravo prema ovome da budemo inkluzivni u smislu tih zajednica, da pače. Ali, velim, do sad nailazimo na niz nekih, što nam se čini, bar iz moje pozicije, zaista nelogičnih odluka, ali...
Možda kroz neki tip ovoga što je i Goran predlagao, a to je zapravo nekih edukacija i zapravo nekih rasprava na tu temu, se možda može dobiti neko razumijevanje prema tome. Mislim da bi program tog tipa bio tim više zanimljiviji kada bi imao heterogene socijalne skupine unutar sebe.
Neka dosadašnja iskustva, kad smo pokušavali pozivati na akcije ljude koji su u socijalnoj ugroženosti, su pokazivala da se vrlo mali broj ljudi želi odazvati tome i da moramo biti vrlo inovativni prilikom načina kako ih potaknuti uopće da nam se odazovu na bilo što, a uključujući i edukaciju.
Mislim, ali ako uzmemo i čak i prosječno, ako je 4.400 prosječna plaća u Križevcima, to zarađuje to je zaista mala plaća s obzirom na ono šta se na tržištu individualnih kredita nudi. To je zaista plaća od 6.600 recimo u Zagrebu koja je prosječna i u biti plaća koju nema baš puno ljudi isto tako. I puno ljudi zarađuje puno manje od toga, a i dalje su zapravo ova neka srednja, recimo, su u tom kontekstu srednjih primanja. Da.
Maybe it would be interesting here to explain how they involve people that you are trying to reach. Maybe you can explain how did you start to work with these vulnerable groups with low income? Maybe even from the very first project from L'Espoir, and how did it continue? How did you engage? How did you start the process of working with them?
How did we start? Well, for us it was really very challenging in the beginning also, because we didn't know if it was going to work. We had a lot of ideas about how these vulnerable groups, what they can and what they cannot do. Is it possible that dynamics that you mainly think for more young urban professionals, middle-income groups who come together and do urban gardening and co-housing projects, will it work with these groups also? What we did was bring people together and ask them, are you interested? Is this something you would consider? We organized several focus groups. We organized, once we saw that there was an interest, we made big general assemblies where we brought all kinds of people together, all kinds of other stakeholders to discuss it, and we saw that there was an interest, and then, of course, if you want to work with these kind of groups, it needs another kind of approach. You need to invest more in training, and accompanying these groups. It needs an investment, otherwise I don't think it will work. But I think that we have proven that it works, and that this has really an important added value, because instead of just it's already very important to give people a home where they can live and then don't have to pay too much, but using this approach, well, you create communities in often very fragile neighborhoods where it is important to have active residents, and I can only say that it works.
Question for Mayor Križevci.
Možda može na hrvatskom.
I would like in English because of the foreign guests. So, are you considering to remove housing land from the market as a town? I'll give you an example from Zurich. It may not be relevant for Križevci, but it's a good example. So their city council decided end of 19th century that city land cannot be sold. They can only be leased to housing cooperatives, long-term lease. And in effect, they removed city-owned land from the market. And this decision is still valid. So it's a very good example. So it may not be relevant for the Križevci, but have you considered something like this?
Toliko rezolutni nismo baš biti, ali s druge strane mi niti nemamo toliko puno gradskog prostora. Konkretno i ova čestica o kojoj smo mi, odnosno koju smo predvidjeli, nalazi se
u ovom modelu koji zapravo pokušamo na neki način sa Križevcima razviti je ideja da zemljište ostane javno.
Da, ali ovo konkretno, ali nije zbog tog razloga ponuđeno. Ovo i mora zbog uvjeta pod kojim smo mi dobili tu zemlju, a dobili smo je od države jer je to bila bivša vojarna koju smo mogli prenamijeniti, točno za uvjete socijalne namjene, društveno, javno korisno i tako dalje. Mi ne možemo se ponašati kao trgovci nekretnina. Zato mi možemo dalje dati pravo građenja, ali da ostajemo vlasnici. Izuzev toga, evo tu kad izađete sad iz tehnološkog parka, ova čistina ispred, to je zamišljeno kao naša građevinska zona, novi centar grada za obiteljske kuće, ali ja mislim da mi u ukupnom udjelu gradu možda ima 25% vlasništva, sve ostalo je privatno vlasništvo. I to je onaj dio kad vam sugrađani na puno različitih mjesta, a do sad je bila politika tako da su se proglašavale građevinske zone tamo gdje i treba i ne treba po meni, znači nema smislenog, nego se onako, došlo je nekoliko zahtjeva, proglasite građevinsku zonu, možete graditi, ali ne osiguravate osnovnu infrastrukturu u tom trenutku. Samo omogućavate nekome da na zemlji koja je dotad bila poljoprivredna, ali u njegovom vlasništvu može graditi kuću zato što uštedi na cijeni gradilišta, ali realno nema onu osnovnu komunalnu infrastrukturu. Ne znam, nije spojeno na javnu vodoodvodnju, nego se rade septičke jame. Tako dalje. Sad mi to pokušavamo upravo baš zaustaviti taj trend, jer i dobijamo niz takvih upita, dajte ovdje proglasite kad će ovo biti građevinska zona, kad... Ne, ovo je sad tu građevinska zona i nju komunalno opremamo, pa ko želi graditi obiteljske kuće, tu zna da može imati potpunu komunalnu infrastrukturu. Ovo sve što je do sad zatečeno, to je tako kako je. Ali, kažem, generalno u smislu vlasništva i kad pogledate popis gradskih nekretnina, mi nemamo toliko puno više slobodnih prostora, niti bi htjeli ići otkupljivati nešto privatno pa ne prenamjenjivati dalje. To nije smjer koji smo mi zacrtali za sljedećih desetljeće i pol. Ali da se vratim na vaše prvotno pitanje, baš da kažem onako rezolutno odlukom, nismo o tome razmišljali, mora biti iskreno. Što ne znači da nećemo, ali...
Super politika. No, mislim, zanimljivo je jer i u Cirihu i u Beču i u svim tim gradovima je zapravo dosta bogatstvo gradu donijela tako što su čuvali svoju zemlju. Kod nas je to rijetko uzimalo. Da, dobro. Ili ima još možda nekih komentara ili pitanja ili možemo na...
Napitajte slobodno, vidite.
Do you have any more questions, comments? No? Dobro. Pozivam vas sve na domjenak, na piće i hranu, a i